Hey, so Ryan and Kurtis, they've been in the last 3 books, and I'm just going to read your intro from the most recent book, Bringing Value, because it's very in alignment with your topic today. They're seasoned real estate entrepreneurs and investors with a passion for teaching permaculture, farming, and agricultural principles through continuous improvement techniques. Their mission is cultivating impactful experiences and enriching lives through mutually beneficial solutions. Kurtis and Ryan are leaving a legacy by regenerating ecosystems in nature's image. And I just am so attracted to what they're doing. It's 20 years ago, I was buying land and, it had to have water on it. It had to be something you could farm. Had to be something you could hunt, because as a hedge against, everything else. So I'm really attracted to what they're doing, and they really apply the science to it. Mine was just, you put it out there and hope, but they have really, they've done it really brilliantly. And I think they're creating a model that their goal is to help other people emulate their model. So I can't wait for them to do a retreat in Walla Walla, Washington, because I'll be the first to sign up. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. And I made you co-host, so if you want to share a PowerPoint, you can.
Awesome. So just confirming you can see our screen then.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. And we look forward to sharing this topic with you guys. If you can't tell from our social media posts and us talking about it all the time, we're very passionate about this and very excited about where it's going. So look forward to sharing a little bit of insight. The fun thing is, I know Todd Solzinger is currently traveling, and they are stopping by the farm. They're going to be in the area this weekend. So he's going to get a live in-person tour. So that'll be great. So for those of you that may have read our story in Bringing Value and solving problems, leaving a legacy, want to hit kind of some of the highlights. And we've been in real estate for over 12 years, as Kyle mentioned, and really just kind of building up a passive portfolio, expanding into different markets, and then also really had a business that we focused on land as well, just vacant, undeveloped land, and treated as like a flip model or creating some cash flow from it. And it wasn't fulfilling. We didn't have a desire to continue, having that as our sole focus. And then COVID happened. And then, like many people during COVID and the lockdowns, we were trying to reassess where we were and what we wanted to do next, and how we could ensure that we're focusing on more of our passions and our intentions there. So just before COVID started, we actually had finally made the decision to renovate our single family home that we were living in the outskirts of Portland, because, hey, we were historically putting money into buying other properties as opposed to, doing anything with our primary residence. But what we, decided is that, hey, we're going to move forward and we're going to actually create a secondary living space. There was an existing daylight basement that was unfinished, and then we'll create some rental income from it and turn it into a short-term rental. And so we were in the midst of that renovation. We'd officially moved out of the house completely at the end of January of 2020. And we're living out of suitcases, staying in different Airbnbs. We were traveling to different events. I know one of our last events was the Inner Circle in LA. And then we found out when we were back in the area, one, the project was delayed. And then two, we, had the news of COVID. And so everybody's freaking out. What do we do? And where do we go? And we were not able to get back into our house. So we essentially had to kind of get creative, working with the construction team and understand, hey, what can we do to get a little bit creative and ensure that we can work together to get this project completed, or at least be able to live on site, because it wasn't, safe or sustainable for us to be living in different places, having 3 dogs with us. So we were able to rotate spaces between the main level and the downstairs, depending on where work was happening, spending a lot of time outside. And that's where we started brainstorming. How do we take the various components of our business and think about where are there opportunities to create some cohesion, and again, focus on that passion. So we decided to develop a business plan, and we wanted to have a life by design and focus on the outdoors, on the environment, and incorporating aspects of our experience and expertise within in real estate as well. So we decided that agriculture was our big focus. We had a lot of experience in kind of a suburban setting, having a garden. We had chickens at the house as well. We'd give chickens or give eggs away to a lot of the neighbors. Kurtis grew up on a dairy goat farm, so we had that past experience, and we're like, well, let's do this on a bigger scale. So we knew that, you know, hey, our criteria was we wanted to stay in the Pacific Northwest. We love the area. We wanted at least 10 or more acres, fertile soil that we knew we could easily grow any crops, access to water, and an agriculture mindset community. And we ultimately, you know, our goal is not to look at things from a monocrop standpoint, which Kurtis will talk about, but really focus on perennials and regenerating ecosystems. So with that, we found a property in Walla Walla, and I'll show a quick video of it as we're talking through. And Kyle talked about our mission of cultivating impactful experiences and enriching lives through mutually beneficial solutions. And so we took this video at the time where we just got the property, just moved on site. And so you can see we have a river that is flowing on the south side of the property, and it also wraps around on kind of the west side. The previous owner didn't do a lot with the property. You can see it kind of, parts of it look like mostly green acres, and he's very meticulous about how he maintained the property. And really, we wanted to kind of see this and unfold the vision over a course of several years. And so we're planning on doing this updated aerial video footage here on an annual basis, so that we can kind of track that progress and see all the changes. And so this was taken in October of last year, and already on site, you see there's a house. It's a dated property, but it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. We got that big machine shed, and that we're adding solar panels to right now, have an existing barn, and then also a big structure that will end up turning into a storefront and have office space in there already. So doing a lot of different things on the property, and we created the name Kaizen Roots. And Kaizen is a Japanese term that essentially means change for the better and continuous improvement. And so what our intention is that we want to create this as our flagship property. We'll kind of talk about our plans here in this discussion, and ultimately kind of replicate it on different scales, different models, and in different markets as well. So this is our starting point. Right.
All right. So Ryan's kind of talked, and we've had these terms in the title, and went through them a couple times already, but just kind of want to define. So permaculture is a blending of both permanent and agriculture that Bill and Mollison had coined, and regenerative agriculture is kind of the practice of what we're looking at. And so basically what we're doing is taking a holistic approach to gardening. So you're going to observe the space and make a plan, and then execute that plan. So you're going to look in what kind of confines you guys have in your garden, pasture, vineyard, orchard, and what do we need to do or not do in order to make that thrive. And, you know, for regenerative agriculture, Ryan had mentioned that we do a lot of land flipping. And so a lot of that is degraded property. And so that's kind of something as we're thinking, you know, where there aren't heavy nutrients in the soil, it's already dust or, you know, desertified. So that's kind of taking place, and that's something that we'll look at later. Fortunately, this property does not have parts of it, but most of the property doesn't have that, and we actually have pretty impressive soil. For the regenerative agriculture, just from a lens of real estate investing, it's kind of like a parallel of adding value. So buying something and doing a flip on that. So you're buying this land that has degenerated nutrients, you're adding to that, and then being able to make a better product in the end. And then Ryan also hit on monoculture versus polyculture. And so monoculture, we're from the Southeast originally. And so like tobacco and cotton and corn were really big. And so you could be driving down the interstate and see like just miles of these crops, right? And so it's just one crop. And that, is a way to do farming. The way that we're looking at is more polyculture. So just thinking like if you went through an undisturbed forest and you went for a walk, kind of looking around, seeing what's there, and replicating that so that it's actually productive as well. And that helps in a couple of different ways. It does mitigate. So, we just had some extreme heat here the last couple of weeks. And so people that put all of their eggs into one basket, and they're like, hey, this is the crop that we're doing. And, we've been in talks, like it's really hard for us to find hay right now just because of that and low rain fall. And so that's a big piece of it. Same thing last year, we had the fires on the West Coast and they're happening again. So a lot of the folks that just do wine grapes are now having 2 years back to back where they aren't having good yields. All right, so this is just kind of continuing on. So what we're doing, you guys have seen a lot of these pictures on our social media, but just kind of want to talk through what the process is and just a couple of different techniques that we're using here on the farm. So the picture on top left is Ryan and I, we're planting a couple of acres of hazelnuts in this picture. So as mentioned, kind of doing a polyculture. So in between each one of these rows, we're planting some other is called intercropping. So a lot of times with the perennial plants, they don't yield right out of the gate. And so that's a big drawback for farmers that have done kind of the conventional model. And like, hey, we don't have 20 to 40 years to wait on a maple tree to produce or whatnot. And so what we're doing on this is we went ahead and planted the perennials. So we'll have some hazelnuts here over a couple of years. And then, we're attaching some wine grapes to them to trellis up. And then in between each row, that's where we're doing more of the annuals that are, we can go ahead and have some yields in between harvests for that. And so this other picture in the middle, these are some raised beds that we did. So long term, we are trying to plan on doing more of the perennials. Like we're asking ourselves a lot of times, like when we're eating dinner and just like, hey, this is interesting. Can we have a perennial plant that does the same thing as this? And a lot of times the answer is yes. So there are a bunch of different lettuces that can be grown and greens that can be grown as perennials instead of, just like the spinach where you typically, or iceberg or whatever, arugula, where you're having to plant that multiple times throughout any given year. That's something that, just from an ROI down the road, hey, let's do it once and do it right and be able to replicate that ongoing. And then next, what we're going to do is kind of talk through. So if you guys look at this picture in the top left, this is where, again, like this is the orchard that we've got. And what we're wanting to do is replicate nature. And so when you think about the plains and before humans were kind of involved, you'd have like bison that were coming through. They would go ahead and take the first pass at this grass area, and then they would keep on moving. Next, they'd be followed by like deer, and then they would keep on moving and trailing behind the bison. And then you'd have, turkeys that come behind that, and then coyotes, and nothing stays in one area very long. And so what we're doing is just kind of plug and playing. So we're taking out, the bison, we're replacing them with, these are Scottish Highline cows. And basically what we wanted to do for any of the animals that are inputs into the system, wanted to have like just heritage breeds. And when you think heritage breeds, those are not like the commercial type of animals that are produced in order to massively grow, right? And so you think about like the turkeys that you have at Thanksgiving, like those are made to grow and massively put on weight over a short term time. Same thing with cows and pigs and all of these things as well. So what we wanted to do, and that's not healthy for the animals. So if they weren't butchered at the end of the season, they probably wouldn't live anyway because their organs would fail. So we start off with each of these rows, and it's called silvopasture. So you're doing an intensive pasture management. So we start off with cows. Again, these are the Scottish Highlines that we had. They're, instead of deer, they're followed by sheep, and our sheep are Southdown sheep. We've got a couple of those for, and Frisian sheep for milk as well as meat. These are the Kune pigs, and they follow behind the sheep. And then finally, we end up having the chickens that go behind that. And this helps a couple of different ways. One, just from a fertilization standpoint. So with the amount of animals that are on property at any given time, we're going through just a couple of tons of fertilizer a week, right? And so if you think of maybe a conventional model where these animals are in one spot for their entire life, that's a lot of maintenance to move that fertilizer out of the system. Whereas if you're able to go through and they're having this where they're rotating through the pasture, they're going ahead and spreading that for you throughout the system, which is really nice. It does help with pasture management too. So you're not having to do the mowing and having machines from that standpoint. It also helps with pest and disease mitigation. So, they're not standing and eating from their where they've wasted over the last couple of days. So they're continuously moving. So you have a lot less of the pests that harm and in that system and that model as well. And finally, you end up getting different products from them. So you got the obvious, the meat, the eggs, the wool, milk, and soaps, and all of these different things in addition to helping the pasture thrive as well. And this is our latest addition to the farm. We've got Addie and Artie. They are Spanish Mastiffs for livestock guard dogs. We're actually on the phone with Kyle the other week and had a fox come in the pasture, and that is something that we hope to not have ongoing once these girls get a little bit bigger.
So our farm babies are very spoiled, very spoiled. So I wanted to kind of tie this back into what we're doing from a real estate standpoint and our vision ongoing for the property itself. So we're currently working with the county and identifying what our best option is of how we can leverage the property to bring people on site, as Kyle mentioned. And we would looking at between 10 or 15 cabins or yurts. We also have the ability to do ADU space and also convert the current residents, and then even potentially have a secondary residence on the second parcel, so that we can utilize those as rentals for people that come to the property. And so kind of working through all the regulations, just making sure that we meet those expectations from a zoning perspective. That large metal shed that I mentioned has the solar panels on it now. We're planning on converting a portion of that to a commercial kitchen so that we can prepare food on site. And then also be able to store products and things for guests that are coming or those that are stopping by to check out the property. Plan on having an outbuilding around that area for restrooms and showers. I mentioned ADU. We'd also like to turn in a portion of the property into a Zen garden for meditation, yoga, hosting retreats, those types of things. And then we have an existing barn structure that is older that we'd like to redevelop and turn into a venue for weddings, and people can enjoy the barn for upstairs dancing, or the outdoor scenery for those types of events, whether it's a wedding or corporate affair. So mention that really, hey, we're planning on having an incorporation of the short-term rental. And what we saw through COVID and getting started in short-term rentals, which we wish we would have done a long time ago, is that people were coming to our property in the Portland market because of the experience. And we had, this little kind of suburban garden type setting. And people were actually asking, hey, do you mind if I grab some of the vegetables, or some that were staying there for a few weeks? Do you mind if we plant something? And so we really saw that, hey, that's the big opportunity is people don't necessarily know a lot of times where their food comes from or haven't experienced it or had the opportunity to do things like gardening or really any exposure to agriculture. And so how can we create that as an experience and teach others what they can do within their own situation and apply it to their respective lives. And so that's where we are looking to start bringing people on site and creating that educational opportunity to learn about homesteading and regenerative agriculture. And a lot of times it's referred to agritourism. And that's essentially just kind of learning about the types of practices that we have. And this is something, the practice of permaculture and regenerative agriculture is pretty well known across the country within the space, but a lot of people don't necessarily have the familiarity because you're used to seeing acres and acres of corn or wheat, and even in this market, I mean, this is a big area for wheat production, and with planting the hazelnut trees, there's no one else in the market that's doing it. In fact, hazelnuts are 99% come out of the state of Oregon for the country. Only 1% is from Washington. And so we're hoping to drive that number up a little bit and then introduce, different opportunities and different ways of farming that are more traditional. And then ultimately the intention is, hey, we want to replicate this on various scales. And so we have the suburban setting in a property in Portland area. We've got this flagship property that's 18 acres. And then we would also like to, with each of our current rental properties in our portfolio, be able to retrofit them and have a space designated, or also, have maybe condo buildings or townhouses or any type of property so that we can show there's always the ability to do something within your current situation. And it can be as simple as having, a little window garden to, an aquaponics system in your garage to, having a designated food forest within your property. I know that's something that Margot has in her property. So again, retrofitting some of those existing units within our portfolio. And then our goal ultimately for ourselves and for people that come on site to visit is that we want to be 75% self-sustaining, where any of the farming outputs, there's the ability to consume exactly what's produced on the property and make up a majority of the diet. And so we're constantly researching and looking up different ways. We actually just purchased some molds so that we can create our own soap and have some of those byproducts available as well. And ultimately with that goal of cultivating a more self-reliant, sustainable, and regenerative future for our family, friends, and investors. So if you're curious about learning more, of course, we are happy to talk about this ad nauseum for anyone that is interested and wants to schedule some time and incorporate it into conversations with our friends and network all the time. But there's some great resources out there, and there's a ton of books that we've read behind us. We've got a whole 2 shelves dedicated to books related to agriculture. But this is a really good grounding book for anyone interested in the topic of regeneration as it pertains to agriculture, and it's by Mark Shepard. We revisit this a lot. I'd have to say the audio version is funny because he has quite a bit of sarcasm throughout the book, and so it's a good read, good listen. Definitely recommend it. Various courses as well. And so across the country, different universities offer permaculture design certificate courses. We actually took a course last fall with Oregon State, and it was an online course for 10 weeks. And it's great because actually through that course, you're actually able to select a project and create that design and get feedback from someone, a professor that is certified in the permaculture practice. And so we both got certified and were able to create essentially our business plan for this property through that process, and then learn. And of course, we've adapted along the way to make some adjustments and changes, but we've got that living, breathing document available for our business plan. And then also I mentioned short-term rentals. So Rest Methods with Tim Hubbard, he has an upcoming event. We went to his event back in 2019. And again, short-term rentals is something we talked about. We'd historically done long-term. Again, wish we would have done it much sooner, but that is a great course. I know that he has it coming up here next week, the 30th through the 1st. Definitely would recommend checking it out. So if you're interested in short-term rentals, I know Ethel during our breakout mentioned that. So Ethel, maybe a great opportunity if you're on the line to check that out. And then some podcasts as well. So we have a friend, Neil Collins, that him and his wife, Alyssa, are big in the space, and we've been working together in parallel journey. And he has a podcast called the Regenerative Real Estate Podcast. Really great content as it pertains to the relation to real estate and how regeneration can be a part of that. And then a shameless plug, Kurtis and Belinda have a podcast, the Bring Your Own Best show. And in episode 2, Kurtis talked a little bit about what we're doing. So if you want to learn more about that from his perspective and details maybe shared here or additional information, check out that episode. And of course, sign up for the podcast as well. And then mentioned in our discussion here, and then Kyle brought it up, we were part of the last book release as well, Bringing Value, Solving Problems, and Leaving a Legacy. So our story is included in that book. And part of our giveaway in our close of the chapter is that we are offering 25 ideas for household permaculture projects. So if anyone's interested in receiving that takeaway, we spend a lot of time compiling different ideas of what you can do within your own setting, and what types of projects you can do for yourself, whether it's, hey, you're living in an apartment versus you're living in a suburban property versus you have, a couple different acres, lots of different opportunities in which you can contribute to improvement of the environment. So just shoot us an email and we'll get that out to you. And then, of course, keep you updated on our journey along the way.
All right. And then finally, here is our different social media places and ways to get in contact with us. So I'm going to close it out here. That is, I believe, the last slide.
Yeah. So we'll open it up for any questions.
Awesome job, guys. Let's give them a hand. That was awesome. Yeah. So, please ask, let's take a few minutes and ask questions, anything you have. And also, Ron and Kurtis, if you could type into the chat the email for people to send off to and what to put in the subject, that would be helpful as well. So who has a question?
I don't have a question. I just want to say it's just wonderful to see people who really care about the environment and care about humanity and are trying to find very unique ways to make it all work together. And so, and even though I understand very little of what you talked about, the whole spirit of what you're doing and how you're doing it and how you're going about it is really inspiring. So thank you.
Well said, Greg. Totally concur with that. Lisa.
Not a question. Well, in a way, a question. When can I come farm sit for you?
Hey, anytime you're welcome. And of course, we don't necessarily have places to stay currently, but like I said, Todd is on his way, and him and Shirley are coming to stop by. So welcome to check it out. Looking forward to where it goes after the fact. And then definitely we have someone with the Future Farmers of America that we found recently that has now been supporting us with farm sitting. So there are career opportunities.
Hey, Ryan and Kurtis, I apologize. I was popping in and out, so I just caught parts of it. But the impression that I got was you're almost recreating the Garden of Eden. Like if this is how it might be, just the sustainability and the nature and the regeneration of it and the all the research that you've put into it and how you're doing it. I just imagine like this would be a slice of what the Garden of Eden would have been like. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so peaceful and we just get lost out there sometimes.
Yeah, that's what we were on Jeanette's call, or the call with Jeanette on Tuesday. And that was something that we, we're like, oh, we're not historically great at meditation. And And that was one of the different line items that she kind of was going through. It's like, hey, spending time out in nature. And we're like, oh, I guess we do this every day, a couple times a day. So pretty cool.
And I have a question.
Yes.
So I love what you guys are doing. It's fantastic. But I want to know when you're going to have the Zen garden meditation ready for yoga retreats.
Yeah, the hope is to start the development portion later this year. I mean, one, kind of working with the county, and then two, the prices of lumber and those types of things. But yeah, the intention is that we have it ready to go in 22.
So keep me posted on that.
So the next inner circle in 2022 is at your place, right?
There you go.
No, actually, I do want to comment though, is I think that's beautiful. I've really been into the regenerative, I can't even talk today, regenerative farming. The vitamin company that I recommend also does work with Rodale out here in Pennsylvania. And I think they have one in California as well, in Colorado. And yeah, amazing the information that has been pumping out with this whole regenerative thing, and basically how it's the way we really need to go in order to save our planet. So it's a beautiful thing. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Sophia, were you wanting to ask something or say
Yes,
something?
quick question. For people that live in apartments, condos, I saw some kind of mechanism where you can grow things, have like a greenhouse kind of in your place. Do you have that information or ideas for people that are in that kind of, living space where they live in a condo living, or they live, like a lot of people, that's what they're doing right now. So I wanted to see if you came across something to start
So
growing your own things, inside, without the soil. And
we actually started when we had a fish, basically a little fish tank, and we had started at the house and in Portland, or maybe even in South Carolina before we moved out. And so we had stuff growing basically on this fish tank, had a grow light above it. So right now in the house, which would be similar to an apartment, just kind of we're growing lavender inside right now. So that was kind of, and you just have like this pump that kind of goes through. You have a medium at the top of whatever the plant is, and then you just adjust the grow light for that. And so we've done that. The aquaponics system that Ryan mentioned in Portland, that is just in like one space in our garage, so it never gets direct. We put in some sunlights, but just engineering what it is today, like it really didn't get a whole lot of those rays that were coming down. So we ended up putting grow lights into that as well, and then grow boxes, as I would say. When I used to live in the condo, I just had like the balcony off of my master in South Carolina was just a bunch of potted plants as well, and I bring them inside over the winter.
okay, thank you.
I think the biggest thing is, especially in if your space is limited or you don't have the outside, is maximizing, what can you do? And a lot of times it's more about going up
Vertical, yeah.
and going vertical versus the flat. And even we're replicating that on the land itself, because with Kurtis mentioned the silvopasturing, we'll have multiple layers of plants in a condensed space, but you can kind of continue to get that replication. So you can do that within, a apartment setting as well, kind of with that creativity of fish tanks and those types of things.
And microgreens are super easy too. That's something we're exploring. We actually just bought a bunch of seeds, so we can keep you updated with that. Microgreens are pretty easy to grow inside as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Great presentation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure and follow them on social media, because all the different levels you guys have been doing, again, that's why I said you're so scientific about it. I mean, you really know what you're doing. You're laying an incredible foundation on so many levels. Again, you mentioned 12 years as investors, and you have multiple other investments. And so I think every level you're checking the right boxes. So I think you've laid an incredible foundation that's just going to be really beautiful as this builds out, not just the farm and the investment but the whole retreats and mentoring, and I think education side of this will be huge. So great job. Make sure and follow Ron and Kurtis on social. Also, make sure we're going to stop the recording, and when we come back, we'll start a new one. So I don't know if the chats will stay in place. So make sure and grab their email out now while you're at it. And same thing with Amy and any of the other things we've put in the chats if you need to grab it. I want to leave room for any more questions for Ron and Kurtis. Guys, it was amazing. Really, truly amazing. So thank you for sharing.